Joining us today for a guest conversation is Kristina from sweetforkindergarten.com. She is a former kindergarten teacher turned stay-at-home mom to 3 little ones. With a background in early childhood development, she's passionate about helping parents and educators nurture young minds through play, exploration, and hands-on learning. She believes that building fine motor skills, encouraging creativity, and fostering a love for learning during the early years lays a strong foundation for future success. Kristina started Sweet for Kindergarten after years of working in the classroom. She discovered how powerful, simple, engaging activities can be for young learners. Now she shares practical ideas, resources, and tools to make early learning fun and meaningful for both parents and teachers. From hands-on phonics ideas to simple fine motor activities, her goal is to support little ones in growing the skills they need to thrive in school and beyond. She shares a glimpse into her life as a mom of 3, along with brands she loves, learning activities, and tips for parents each and every day. If you're preparing a child for kindergarten or looking for ways to make playtime purposeful, you need to check out her early childhood development tips. I'll share all her contact information in the show notes today and at the end of today's episode. Grab a cup of coffee and join me for this coffee chat with Kristina. She's going to share about the beginning stages of her business. She'll share a time when business felt sticky, and she'll walk us through her thought process of how she got out of that situation to make sure her business was a win-win at all times. You're listening to Your Win-Win Teacher Business, a podcast for teacher authors who want to make a big impact in the world for teachers and students and have fun doing it. I'm your host, Janice Cook, here with a pep talk to start your week off strong. Some seasons of running a business feel hard and sticky, but it shouldn't feel like that all the time. Let's make your business a win-win together. Hey, Kristina, good to see you today.
Hey, Janice, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited for our chat. We're kicking back today and talking about the real life in running a teacher business. I'm excited to get to know your story a little more, and I would love to know where you are in life. Take us back to when you started this teacher business and like what your dream was that it would turn into.
Well, I started way back in 2015, so it's almost coming on 10 full years, and
Wild.
I know, and I honestly never envisioned it to be what it is today at all. I just wanted to pay for my weekly Starbucks. That is literally why I started. I was already creating resources that I was using for my classroom and my whole kindergarten grade level team. There was 8 of us at this school. We were all using, each other's resources. We were all creating things. And one of the other teachers was like, oh, you should put that on Teachers Pay Teachers. And at the time, I had never bought anything on there. I had literally only downloaded the free resources that I found and, screenshots from Pinterest. Like that's how I found resources outside of what I created and like what the curriculum had. And so I didn't even realize that people like bought things on TPT. So I was like, sure, I'll put it up. At the time, I just wanted to make just like a little extra money, like $25 a month. Then I could get my Starbucks every Friday. It's funny, I still do this. I still go to Starbucks every Friday. I put a couple resources up that first month and I made 25 bucks and I was so happy.
Woo! 25 bucks pays for some Friday Starbucks for sure. I still
Yeah.
remember our first sale was 27 cents because we weren't on the premium account yet, back in the day.
Hmm.
But it was just that validation of like, see what happens, right? Okay, I put
Right.
this thing up here. I figured out how to get this far. And then you like wait for the universe to tell you, right? I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
maybe this is a thing that works. I kind of liked that cha-ching sound. Maybe I'll do that again. I can totally relate.
Yeah, it was super motivating. I just fell in love with like creating resources and I was using everything in my classroom, filling in those gaps that I needed a worksheet for this phonics skill. I'm just going to create it real quick because it was easier than trying to search for it myself. I could create it
Hmm.
faster. And yeah, it grew from there. Kind of started my blog, my Instagram after I did a cross country move. So I was in Florida and I moved across the country to Southern California, and I didn't know anybody. And that first summer I was there, this is before I got like a teaching job. I'm with my husband, then fiance. And I mean, I had nothing to do during the day. Like I nannied for a
Mhm.
family, and then the rest of the time I was just creating resources and created my blog. It was Chevron everywhere
Of
and
course
like
it
bright
was.
colors.
That's what the game was.
That was yeah, that was like 2015. Yeah, and that's when I started my Instagram as well. So, and then since then it's grown and it's gone through different changes and different seasons. I became a mom. It's crazy to see
I
how far
think
it's come.
Instagram is a really similar story for a lot of people where you're in a season, whether it was the pandemic or you just moved or you're home with a baby that can't talk to you. I think that's a time where a lot of people turn to Instagram for community. And I think the circle of that is really cool that you turn to Instagram for community and now you're that safe space for others in that season who need
Right.
community too. I think that part of social media doesn't get enough positive press.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, there are friends I have on Instagram that I've never met in real life, and I
Yeah.
talk to more than my real life friends. Just because we're
100%.
going through everything, it's just a great way to connect. And as a teacher who didn't know a single soul out in California before I got a
Mhm.
teaching job, it was a way that I could, share different teaching ideas. And that was like the beginning of like Teachergram too. So I feel like I
Mhm.
kind of got in like at a good time for
Yeah.
it. And now my Instagram's completely different. So
Right,
just
because
go
life
through seasons.
shifts and business shifts, and I think you've done such a beautiful job taking your audience with you and just having them be like, "Hey guys, here's where I'm going next. If you want to come too, I'd love to have you. If this isn't your jam anymore, I totally get it, but like this is the season I'm in." And I think that people have come along with you for the journey, right? They're like, "No, I like you.
Yeah.
I'm here for the real." And people have zigged when you've zagged, I think.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I still have people on there that I talk with regularly that have been there since like the beginning, 2016.
Yeah, and
So,
that's really, really special. So if it was Starbucks money, was there a moment where you felt like your store was flagging you down, like this could become really significant income, pay more attention to me? After that initial period of transition where you just kind of put your head down and let yourself be creative, was there a moment where like the market was telling you or like your dashboard was telling you like this could be a bigger thing?
it was more myself telling me because I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that was always my goal. But living in California, living on
Woo!
one person salary is not cheap. And so when I found out I was pregnant, it was about a month after I went to my first TPT conference. And there was a seller who was able to double her teaching income. She talked all about how she was able to stay home with her kids and all of that. And I remember talking with one of my friends who I'd met there, like, oh, that's what I want to do one day. And then, like, literally a month later, I was pregnant and I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember talking to my husband, like, I can do this. I can do this. Just like, give me a year. Let me see if I can match my teaching income because, the cost of daycare. And
Oh
I was
yeah.
working at a private school in California. So I was really not making a lot. And I was like, I can do it. And yeah, when she was born, I stayed home. We ended up moving back cross country to Virginia. So I had a year to kind of like prove myself like, okay, I can supplement this enough to support our family. And yeah, I blew it out of the water. So it was just like
Yeah, because your why was
everything
so
aligned
strong.
perfectly.
You were like, nothing's going to get in my way. This has been my dream. I saw a path to get there. Get out of my way. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that you kept your Starbucks habit alive. I think that's really important as like a little ritual to remind you like this is still where we started. I think that's really sweet.
Yep. I think of it every week.
Yeah. No, I think it's super important to throw it back once in a while and remember like how nervous we were at the beginning. Like you could have put that resource up on TPT. No one could have ever bought it and you wouldn't have been like totally surprised, right? And I
Right. I did not think anybody was going to buy it. I didn't think teachers were actually buying resources on there.
I
So
started my
I was
store
shocked.
together with my husband. We were creating resources together, and he didn't know what TPT was, and I had to tell him, and I felt like this weird shame that I had spent money on TPT. I was like, it's this website where we buy things to use for work, because like that's not a popular thing out in the real world.
Hmm.
I was like, but the good news is now we can get some of that money back
Yes, I definitely use it in the early days to buy things
for
on
sure.
TPT.
Yeah, once you see that there is stuff in there that can help you, I can appreciate that there are seasons of life that it's really helpful. So, I think having your teacher business has been a huge win-win for your family overall. It sounds like you had a dream, you were looking for a path to get there, and you went all in on this and you made it happen. These are really exciting moments in the story, but we know that business is like an up and down roller coaster. Have there been any moments that felt a little sticky and frustrating?
Like the whole last year, 2023, I found out I was pregnant with my third and I was going to have two under two. So I've already kind of like figured out the whole like nap time hustle with like having one baby. And then I was working through, doing it with two kids. And, my oldest was in preschool at the time and figuring that out. And I had like kind of a good groove going on. And then the third just kind of like threw it all out of whack. It's so different going from two to three kids.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had my oldest in kindergarten and then I had that two under two age gap, which is just like you're in the trenches. Like I honestly did not work more than maybe 5 hours a week the past year until like recently.
And what do
And
you think you
so
were working before the third baby, before that? Because that's part of that transition is the expectations of it all.
like 20 hours easily.
Mm.
I did have a babysitter come once a week too. I hired that out to have like a set work time for myself. But then, yeah, all of our babysitters got real jobs and all of that.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, I honestly didn't have the mental capacity to like really put a lot of work into it as well. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I'm, waking up early to like either try to work out or like try to get work in real quick. And then, having little ones, their sleep schedule's all crazy. I had
I don't
alternate
think
nap
people talk
schedules. Oh
enough
my
about
gosh.
the mental capacity of it all because you can write on your calendar that you're going to work 1 hour after your kids go to bed, and that looks so neat and tidy in your little planner with your highlighters. But that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that, like, at 8 p.m., I can just like turn on my functional human brain and make something happen. Like, we are people, we're not robots.
Right.
You can't just do that. And so we learn a lot about our mental capacity, I think, in motherhood too, where you are just tapped out in all
Yeah.
directions, tapped out, touched out, mental load to the max. Just because you have a moment where technically nobody needs you doesn't mean you're ready to like make something. Mental
Right.
capacity is an absolutely limited commodity. I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, after five, my brain is mush. I could not form coherent sentences. There's no way I could write an
No.
email or work on a resource. I might put some pins on Pinterest. That's about it.
I,
Even
I
now,
feel that.
like
Yeah.
I can't.
Sometimes
I'm
I
a
can do
morning
like some
person.
digital cleanup, right? Like dragging things to the trash can. That's like all I can do at 5 p.m. And so that must
Exactly.
have given you big feelings. Like you had decided these all are important things that I do in my 20 hours a week. What is that process of saying that, like, well, I don't have 20 hours anymore? How do you decide what makes the cut?
I had to let go of so much. It was really hard because I had worked so hard to get to where I was, but I mean, I had an email list, a blog, an Instagram, a course. I had
Mhm.
webinars that I was doing. I had this huge like business and it's not feasible for one person to do all the time. And I had to let go of VAs because I honestly couldn't even keep on top of them. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't even keep on top of the monthly tasks that I was giving them. So I had to take a huge step back and be like, okay, what is like my most important thing that I need to work on? That's what I'm doing. And that's the only thing I can focus on at this time. And as my kids get a little bit older and I'm having a little bit more work time, then I can start adding things back in. So that was really hard for me. And
Yeah,
it
it's that
definitely
living
took a
in
dip
your
on my
season
business.
moment. It doesn't mean you're going to work 5 hours a week forever. It doesn't mean you're
Right.
never going to have mental capacity again. But right now, you have what you have. And so you have to look at that pie, right? And decide like what are like the really big things that are making the money. If I only had 5 hours, like that's where it has to go. That's so hard because you don't get to say like, well, this is my favorite thing to do, right? You didn't
Right.
get to pick your favorite task,
No, I
I'm
didn't get to
guessing.
pick my favorite.
No, you have to pick the big money makers, and those are those hard moments, I think, where it feels sticky. You're like, "But I'm my own boss. How come I don't get to do the things I wanna do? How come I have only 5 hours of tasks left and they're not my favorite? What a bummer." But it is
Mhm.
that, like, perspective of, like, "No, but I am still at my goal, like, I'm getting to stay home with my babies. That was my goal. This is still accomplishing my goal, and it's only a season."
Right.
Is there something that didn't make the cut in the 5 hours that you're, like, really excited to bring back when you have more capacity?
So the course was something that I had worked so hard on. I spent most of 2019 and 2020 setting it up, getting everything in, creating these webinars and all of that. And that was like the first thing that had to go. There was
Yeah.
absolutely no way because you're very like forward facing on it. It's not like you can hire out a VA to like kind of take care of
Mhm.
everything. It's a lot on you. And that was also a chunk of the income that I made too. So it was like I just had to let it go. Like that was the one thing that I had to let go. I've tried bringing it back a little bit, but I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like in the future.
And I think we hear a lot about courses being passive and set it and forget, but there's maintenance and there's upkeep
It's
and there's
not set it
customer
and forget.
service. No. And so it's hard. In the crystal ball, you probably didn't know you were heading into a season with 2 under 2. And so you probably would have put the course on your landscape at a different time. But like, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right. And like put course on Evergreen has literally been on my to-do list for the past 2 years. So
Right.
I have a whole
Yeah.
plan for it. Have I had time to do it? No.
No, and I think that happens too, where we have time to learn about something, but you're like, well, I've learned just enough to know I don't have the bandwidth to start.
Right.
Like, once the train leaves the station, you have to go. And so if you know that you don't have the margin for it, I think you were really wise to just take a moment.
Hmm.
One day they go to school and then you have more than an hour and it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, so the course is something you poured a lot of your time into, and it'll be there. It'll be easier than creating it from scratch for sure because it started.
Yes. I've
What did make
already
the keep list?
So my email list was definitely top. Like I have been consistent with emailing I have like monthly roundups and then weekly newsletters and for the sales and all of that. That was like my number one, stay on top of this, create email funnels and different opt-ins and things like that. Blogging, I had to take a big step back. I created, I want to say like 40 something posts in 2021. And this year, I think I'm at like 12. So it's like completely different. Like I'm not blogging as much, but still trying to be consistent. And those were like my main two things and resource creation, but it's taking me so much longer to do a resource these days. I have
Yeah.
all of these wonderful ideas, but not enough time.
Now
So,
it takes a lot of mental capacity, a lot of creative strength, and a lot of being able to like get into that flow zone, which we don't always have as moms. We are start and stop and
mhm.
working in pockets. And I think that makes something like resource creation really hard.
Oh, so hard.
I will
It's so hard
say,
to
I
stop.
think 12 blog posts a year is a great goal. That's the season of blogging that I'm in right now. It's like it reminds Google, like, I'm still here. This
Yeah.
website's still a thing. Like, things are still happening in here. Please don't forget about me. And it also makes sure I never want to be putting out a blog post just to check the box. I don't want to put it out until it's ready and it's helpful and
Right.
it's really intentional. So I absolutely resonate with that. I would always rather put out 12 blog posts in a year that are really good than 52 that, a bot could have written and aren't going to help anyone or ever get seen.
Mhm.
I think email
Exactly.
marketing is so smart. There are seasons of the year where I write the weekly email like the week of spontaneously. And then there are other seasons like summer where I left the office in May completely batched out for the summer. And it was like my favorite part of my business in that moment because I feel like I could still show up in a good way for people with batched content in the summer. Where not everything is like that. Like you can only batch social media so far. You can only batch certain
Right.
types of things so far ahead. I'm always grateful for email marketing in those seasons because you really can keep a steady experience for your users on the other side without them feeling the chaos of your life.
Right. And you can continually get new subscribers by not really doing anything because you have opt-in
Mm.
forms on your blog, on Pinterest, you can run a Facebook ad. There's so many ways to get people onto your email list, and that was one of the things that I focused on this past year was creating email funnels because I had a bunch of opt-ins, but they got their freebie and that was it. So I
Mhm.
started building out those funnels and I'm definitely seeing more of a return. So it's getting me excited to continue to do that for different resources and topics and all of that.
Yeah, and I think the data is always there. The breadcrumbs are always there about what's working. We just have to be like brave and listen to them. So when you see like, well, this email performs well every October, I'm going to send it again. Oh,
Right.
everybody likes
Yep.
this freebie, whether it's my favorite or not. That's the beginning of their journey in my brand. So let's go ahead and really make the most of their first couple of emails in. And once you
Mhm.
see a funnel formula that works for your person, I'm sure it's easier to set one up for the next resource from there.
Yes. Yes. The first one I did took so long. And
Mhm.
then the next one was a lot quicker. The next one was faster than that. So just like kind of getting your feet wet and actually doing it.
I think the data is always there with the funnels. We have to do more of what's working and we have to be really humble and just do what the data says. I think that's always the path of least resistance. Funnels, the fact that we can build a funnel that you write those emails once and more fresh people come through the top
Hmm.
and you get the same results. That's really encouraging because it makes a lot out of the 5 hours that you have to give. You know that, okay, if I work on this funnel and I get it right, now it's gonna have a big ROI. Are there other tasks in your business that even if you enjoy doing them, you feel like you don't get the long-lasting results?
Sometimes resource creation, honestly, like I'll create something like so excited about it, and then it just crickets. And I'm like, okay, guess you guys didn't want that.
There's that 80-20 rule that, like, 20% of our resources are gonna make, like, 80% of the money, but
Hmm.
then, like, I look at my store and I'm like, "But I worked really hard on these, and I was really thoughtful and intentional, and I worked just as hard on them as the others, and they're just as
Right.
good in my opinion." And it's so hard. It's like, "But it doesn't matter." "What do you mean it doesn't matter? Like,
Yep.
you're attached to all of them." And I know social media, we had just talked about as like a real positive that we get a lot of community on there, but I do struggle sometimes with the shelf life of a social media post. You work
Yes.
on a reel and you feel really good about it and you really put a lot of intention into it. And I'm like, all right, guess no one cared
Yep.
about that.
5 likes,
Yeah. So it's
and then
really
it just
hard.
dies.
No, but I think that's something that you do really well as a business owner is like, all right, I guess what is the best use of my time is this. And so if I only have
Mhm,
5 hours and I'm really, really strong about this why and making this stay-at-home mom thing work, then I have to make every single hour I have really, really count.
mhm, and I
Yeah.
did a lot of back and forth on, like, what do I work on? What do I do? And I've definitely, like, bounced all over the place, tried different things, and, yeah, I think email marketing was definitely, like, the biggest return on investment for me personally in this season, so that's what I'm really focusing on, those ways to make income passively, so I do it once, set it, and forget it.
Yeah.
And then also just trying to find multiple streams of revenue too, to just kind of keep building that up.
Yeah, and I think there's no shame in the exploration of trying those things. I think it's just about being humble and taking the cues like, "Well, I tried that, it didn't work. That's fine,
Mhm.
but I can't do it again because there's no time to waste on the current schedule in this season."
Exactly.
When you get 20 hours again though, don't you feel like you're gonna be, like, unstoppable?
Yes, seriously, I'll have like a 3-hour window some days if my youngest takes a long nap when the other 2 are at school, and I'm like, "Wow, I did all of this in 3 hours? This would have taken me so much longer 2, 3 years ago." Just like
100%. And
I
one
can, like,
day,
really
when
zone in.
all 3 of your kids are, like, at school for the whole day, like, the sky is the limit. I have no idea what you'll be capable of.
I
That's
have
gonna
no
be
idea.
unbelievable. So your audience shifted, but you're definitely still serving that original teacher community in the ways that you have capacity for, right? So on Instagram, you
Right.
are chatting a little bit more with moms,
Yes.
but you're definitely still supporting your teacher audience. I imagine that they just hang out more on your email list, right?
Yep, my
Yeah.
email list, I have a Facebook group, and then I'll have people, find me through blogs and whatnot. So, 'cause my other teacher Instagram is dead. I
It
haven't posted on there
happens.
in so long. It's like one of those things. I'm trying to build back Pinterest a little bit right now, just like with organic pinning, and that's been going a lot better. So I'm gonna focus on that because that's a lot easier to batch and like get a big chunk done versus writing a single social media post that takes me 20 minutes and then nothing happens. So
Right, and I don't think Pinterest and Google, for that matter, like, notices as much when we're absent, whereas, like, on Instagram, like, it just feels really
it really
noticeable.
does. You take a couple of days off and it's like, who are you again?
Yeah, Pinterest is very forgiving in that way. It's like, "Oh, welcome back. People like your stuff. They will still like whatever this is. I know exactly who to
Yes.
send it to."
Just after like 1 month of like consistently pinning a couple times a week, I was like, wow, my reach has gone up. Like that's all I had to do. That was
Yeah,
easy.
and that's really encouraging because you're like, "Well, I can do that again because I have
Right.
time to pin to Pinterest. I have no mental
Yes.
capacity, but I could pin to Pinterest," right?
Yep.
I don't look Instagram ready today, but I could pin something to Pinterest. We're so grateful for Pinterest and its kindness in this season.
Hmm.
And so I just really appreciate I have followed you from back I think I found you in the teacher days, but
Yeah.
moved along with your mom journey. My kids are older than yours, but I love seeing you pivot and share real life. You're like, "This is what I have for you today. It's a tip about feeding your kid. It's a tip about active boys. This is what I have, guys."
Hmm.
And you just always show up for your people every day. And you're like, if this isn't what you need, scroll on past. But this is what I can offer you in the world, in my season. And I think people are here for it.
Yes, I love to hear that.
So I'm so glad to hear that the teacher business is still chugging for you in the background and you're still staying in it within your season because there are definitely seasons of life where life throws curveballs at us and it feels like everything's important. There's no way I'm going to be able to turn this around and figure it out. And it can be really, really frustrating. But I just know that there's someone listening who's entering in a season like yours and hearing the decisions you had to make and how you think about them out loud is going to help someone else navigate like the next step in their teacher business journey. So I'm just super grateful that you're willing to chat today.
Yes, of course. And so many people talk about like the journey to get to where they are, but then they don't talk about what happens if you have to pivot and change and take a step back. And I feel like that was hard for me because I had never really heard anyone talk about it before. And so then I'm dealing with it like, oh, I'm failing at everything right now. But in reality, it was just I had to live within my season.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love reading the stories of businesses and people like if I get to know like a Peloton instructor, you're seeing them in like their chapter 90. I'm like, "Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, I would love to know about chapter 1 with all of these big name people." I love reading stories all the way back because these are the big moments you want to hear about. A moment where an opportunity landed on someone's desk and they had to make a big choice, a moment where
Hmm.
something wasn't working and they had to either stay stuck or make a big brave decision and go for it. And hearing people talk through what that felt like and how they knew which road to take, I think those lessons are much more valuable. Although there is something about sharing the success story, like that original moment at the TPT conference, that was a really important moment for you too, to know
Right.
that what you were driving towards was possible and repeatable and someone had done it. I would love to hear so much more in teacher business world in general about these middle steps that are sticky that I think we keep a little closer to our heart because nobody wants to share, like, oh, it's not working today.
Right.
I think
I
people get really,
failed. I
really
tried this
quiet.
and it didn't work.
Right. I tried this and it's going horribly. Love that for me. But I think when each and every one of us takes a moment to share one time where things were sticky and shows that, like, we got on the other side in one piece, it turned out okay, then the sticky moments feel a little bit less like a catastrophe.
Yeah, you're not so alone.
Christina, where can people connect with you after our chat today?
So I'm most active on my Instagram. It's at Kristina Harrill, and I just share a plethora of just like relatable mom tips. I also kind of share a little bit behind the scenes of trying to run a business and all of that, different toys that my kids are enjoying. And I always have that little teacher in me where I share the developmental piece too, because I think that's so important. And then I also have my website, www.sweetforkindergarten.com, which has lots of different blog posts about phonics, writing, literacy, phonemic awareness, all of that. So you can also find me there as well.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see you get to use that expertise now as your kids go through those ages that you're an expert on too. I'm glad that
Hmm.
you're not in your
It's
season
fun.
making these resources or Googling or researching now and finding out, because I think that's the trouble in the parenting realm is a lot of us are like, oh, I have to teach my kid to read. Let me real quick figure out how that works. And there's no time and space. You have to lean on
Right.
experts like Kristina who have already figured that out. I think that's a really exciting time for you to get to use your own resources with your own kids.
Yeah, it is really cool. I love chatting with you, and I think it's really important for everyone to hear all of the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride.
Absolutely. And even if somebody has like a really exciting dashboard and they've been on the platform a really long time, they're all living the same life behind the computer screen. I think we're all having days where we hit our head against the wall, whether you're in the beginning trying to turn that first Starbucks money into something repeatable, or your store has grown and you're still in the same place. It's so interesting how the day-to-day struggles are really all so similar at the different steps in
Hmm.
her journey. Kristina, thanks for having coffee with me today. It was super nice to chat with you.
Yes, I loved being on.
Thanks for making this podcast a part of your day. Do you have a win-win teacher business story you'd like to share? Head to cookfamilyresources.com/podcast to find my guest application. I'll also leave that link in the show notes for you. See you in the next episode.